Hello, beautiful people. It's your girl, Miss Eileen, aka Grammy, and today is a fantastic time for podcasters. So, if you're a podcaster, you may have heard the news that it's going to be a lot easier for us to monetize our podcasts and two of the podcast distribution giants are going to be fighting for your attention. And the first one I want to talk about is one that is near and dear to my heart. I have a podcast named after these people, so you know I really like them, and that's Anchor, aka Spotify. Well, I got an email from them, and I want to say thank you to Birdie Lynn. Thank you so much for the super chat. You are so incredible. Thank you, dear. Oh, yes. Oh, it was a super sticker. Yay, 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 yay. Thank you. That's right. I am representing for Anchor. For those of you who don't know, I have the podcast called The Anchor Show. So I want to make sure that everyone knows that you don't have to be super tech savvy in order to start a podcast. And although it's something that a lot of us have had years of experience with, and it may seem like it's the easiest thing in the world for somebody who's been podcasting for 5, 6, 7, 8, 12 years. But for someone who's never podcasted before, and they hear about this phenomenal platform of audio podcasts, they need to know that there's an easy way to get started. And also, it's free in case you just want to dip your toes in the water and see if podcasting is really your thing. Then you can use Anchor. So I got an email from my buds at Anchor. And if you're an Anchor hosted podcaster, you probably got this email as well. But it was all over the news. But I just want to read you the email I got today. Today, we couldn't be more excited to announce the launch of paid subscriptions. It's the easiest subscription experience for both creators and listeners. Creators save time with streamlined setup, management, and customizable pricing while keeping 100% of their revenue, excluding standard payment processing fees. Listeners get access to subscriber-only content and support their favorite creators directly with the ability to listen on any podcast platform they want. Want to set up a paid subscription for your podcast? Sign up now to get access or check out our blog for more information. Hey, okay, so I want to go over something that's super important here. And we are going to talk about Apple Podcasts in a minute. But before I get to that, I want to talk about this statement that they made that will not apply to Apple Podcasts. Okay, and it does not apply to some of the other solutions that are already out here for podcasters to get sponsorship or subscription payments from their listeners. And that is, listeners get access to subscriber only content and support their favorite creators directly with the ability to listen on any podcast platform they want. That's what's super important there. And of course, we love that you're going to get 100% of the monies. Of course, there's always a payment processing, whether it goes through PayPal or it goes through Stripe or whatever the different options are, Cash App, then who cares? That doesn't matter. They're going to, those payment processors, they got to make money too. So there's always going to be that middleman there. But some of the other platforms, for example, Patreon, which is one that I use and I've been a big supporter of them, and I still like Patreon. But they need money in order for them to keep the lights on as well. And so they're taking a portion of anything that your patrons give to you. And that could be anywhere from, I think, 8% all the way up to like 12%, or maybe it's as low as 5% for some of the early adopters like myself. So zero is a whole lot cheaper than 12%, isn't it? So, and then wait, there's more. Or we're going to get into it, but I do want to see if anyone has any feedback about what I've shared so far about Anchor. Because what I want to do is I want to show you that application that they mentioned and show you how simple it is to go ahead and sign up. Now, I do want to remind you that Anchor is owned by Spotify. So this is in conjunction with Spotify. So you will see anywhere you see Anchor, when they're talking about this, they're also talking about Spotify. Okay. So that's where Anchor's funding is coming from, Spotify. All right. Let's get that clear. Okay. Let's see if I can do this correctly. Yay, I did it. My friends at EcammLive have made this so much simpler now to do the screen sharing, but I'm doing it the old school way. So anyway, you're going to, of course, put your name in, your podcast link, your country. Now, I don't know what the limits on the country are, but I'm going to assume that this is going to be limited to US. All right. Let's assume that for now. And your email address. So here's another thing that was mentioned in the blog post, which I didn't read to you, is the number of subscribers. They're saying that your size of your audience is not going to matter, is not going to determine whether or not you're going to get access to this. So let's see if I can. Didn't mean to do that. Let's go back. So they give you a choice of how many listeners you have on a monthly basis: 0 to 50, 51 to 100, 101 to 1,000, etc., all the way up to 100,000 plus. And then it could be none of the above, which I'm not sure what none of the above would be, because if you have less than 0, so from 0 all the way up to 100,000 plus. And then that's it. And then it's just asking you if you host your podcast on Anchor, because you do need to host the podcast on Anchor, and it tells you how to switch over if you so choose. Okay. And then that's it, because I've already filled this form out, so I'm not going to fill it out again. And then you just get a thank you. Thank you will be in touch from them. We will be in touch. So, first of all, I know Birdie Lynn, I know you have a podcast on Anchor. Did you fill out the form yet? I'd love to know. If you're still here, Birdie Lynn, let me know if you have filled out the form. And if you're, going to go for it. So this also should be as an encouragement for you guys to put out an episode if you haven't put out an episode in a while. I know I tend to pod fade every now and then because I do so much with live streaming and all of my other endeavors. but I put out a couple of episodes last month. Uh, oh, no, not last month because it's May already. So that was in March. And well, I was on vacation last month, so I have a good excuse. And then this month, actually, this is my podcast recording. So this content today is going to be repurposed up on the podcast because, after all, it's the Anchor Show, and hence the reason why I started with all of the things, the subscription options and the news from Anchor. That's why I started with them. And I know most people probably would have started with what's going on with Apple Podcasts, but hey, it's my show, so I do my thing. Okay. So, with that said, I've heard quite a few conversations about this. One that I do want to give a shout out to is Ben Thompson and his co-host over at Exponent. Let me get that podcast up so I can give you the right information. Ben Thompson and James Allworth at exponent.fm. They had at one point removed their podcast from Spotify. And hello, Alicio. Thank you so much for joining. We live. Yes, we are. Thank you. They had removed their podcast from Spotify for some reasons that were kind of over my head. They explained themselves, but I don't get I don't even get political about my podcast, put it that way. But there were some underlying reasons. But after they saw what Spotify is offering to podcasters at this time, because one of the things I know from Anchor, I've been using Anchor for, since it first released podcasting, all right? And we already had sponsorship on Anchor from, listener support. I've done tutorials here on YouTube as well as over on my blog about that. And so you could already get support, but you weren't providing exclusive content for that support. Okay. And when someone subscribed, the paid subscription, you were getting access to who that person was and their contact details. Now, I'm not sure it's 100% clear that we're going to get that same level of detail with Spotify. I'm only going to assume that we are going to at least know who they are, and in addition, probably have their email address, because they'll, they won't need to sign up for an account, I don't think, but they do have to sign into the payment gateway in order to process the payment. So we'll see how all that works out, because I don't think this actually rolls out and actually gets in the hands of the everyday podcaster until next month, which is June, but it could go sooner. I think that the parts and pieces are in place already for them to just, push a couple of buttons and release this, because it was already in place. Like I said, we already had listener support over on Anchor anyway. So I'll use that to segue over into Apple Podcasts and the announcements that were made in the Spring Loaded, I believe was the name of the Apple event, where Tim Cook took the stage, and it was all pre-recorded. Oh my gosh, it was absolutely brilliant presentation. Oh, my favorite part had to do with the iMacs, and I've already purchased mine this morning, as a matter of fact. And hi, Larry F. Thank you for the thumbs up. And that reminds me, I do want to say to you guys that enjoying this content, if you are enjoying this content, just consider to buy me a coffee. And that's buymeacoffee.com/Eileen. And I am not sure what happened to my little rotating widget that I had. Oh, you know what it is? I'm down at the wrong part of my EcammLive. I should be up at the top where I have my little rotating widget. There you go. Eileen.link/coffee. Yeah. Okay, so, and I really don't have to tell you Eileen.link/YouTube since we're on YouTube, but it's there anyway, just so you'll know. And I'll take that down in a minute. But okay, so one of the first things that Tim Cook talked about when he got up on the stage was about podcasting. And I say the stage, but you guys know what I mean. It was all pre-recorded, but it was just done so well, so professionally. You know, we all want to be Apple. You know, all of us live streamers, especially, and video producers want to be Apple when we grow up, right? They just do their presentations so well, so professionally. So one of the things that he talked about was the podcast app. Now, in the past years, I started podcasting in 2009. And I didn't think it was until around maybe 2016, 2017 when I started to get a little frustrated with Apple. Probably because of YouTube and, you know, the stark contrast between the data and the statistics that we get from YouTube, which, you know, you could go super deep just in the YouTube studio, not even counting third-party tools that we can use. And, you know, all of like where people are coming from, how many people subscribe, the views, the this and that, you know, we can just dive way deep into our content analytics. And I'm a geeky girl like that. I like to look through analytics and know the flow of traffic into my content. And I started getting frustrated as my podcast started growing. And I'm talking about the Miss Eileen Speaks podcast, because of course I didn't have the Anchor show back in those days. Anchor wasn't even out yet. And I started saying, hey, how come, you know, they don't tell us who is subscribed, and how come they don't tell us, you know, how long people listen, you know, all the good stuff that we can get from YouTube. And so this is when YouTube just took my heart, because I just felt like, the heck with Apple. And, you know, over the years, Apple has started to listen. They started making some changes and tweaks. You know, of course, they weren't listening to little old me, but, you know, the vibe was out there, and it was coming from different sources and not just myself. But it was, you know, that creators or podcasters need more. They need more tools. They need access to more data and more ways to bring in their audience. And, you know, of course, podcasting was always like, the stepchild, like the second thought for Apple, like, we'll get around to it one day. We don't really need to do anything because y'all not making us no money. So, originally when they introduced the Apple or the iTunes directory, is what it was called, was because they wanted to sell more iPods. And, podcasting had already been out. It had been introduced by Adam Curry and Dave Weiner. And, they already had the name. Ben Hammersley was the one who called it a podcast in an article he did back in The Guardian back in 2004. And, even Todd Cochran from Blueberry had already written a book about podcasting. And then, all of a sudden Apple started to, build this directory up and allowed folks to submit their podcasts into the directory. And thanks for the thumbs up, guys. I see that coming through. I appreciate you guys. And as that was happening, like I said, for Apple, it was great because they sold more iPods and then iPhones, and it got to the point where it's just like, hey, podcasting is just one of the little things that we got over here on the side because they built the App Store. Okay, that's where the money is, right? For them in terms of services. They've got the hardware, but then they also had the services. So all the apps in the App Store, their own apps, as well as all of the other paid apps, which they charge a pretty penny for folks to put their apps in the App Store. Okay, so I believe it is the same cut that we're going to talk about in a moment as far as the distribution. Now, remember, with Spotify, they're saying you're going to keep 100%. The only money that you're not going to get is what the processing fees are. But with Apple Podcasts, it's a little different. So I think I've kind of laid a little bit of a foundation there. I feel like I forgot something, but it's okay. We'll come back to it. So let's now talk about what Tim Cook introduced. And first, I want to say that Apple, this is the part, that's why I'm glad I have it written down. This is the part that I was about to skip over. Not only did Apple start thinking about podcasters as podcasts started growing, as it started being more important, as it started to replace some of the mainstream media, Apple actually started providing tools for podcasters. Shout out to EcammLive. The stream is powered by EcammLive, by the way. Link in the description. And one of the things they did, in fact, not too long ago, maybe 2 years ago, they stopped referring to it as iTunes, and it was Apple Podcasts. So if you're an iPhone user, you don't have the iTunes app on your phone anymore. You have the Apple Podcast app. Now on a Windows computer, you still have iTunes, but that's not the point. They started with a site called Apple Podcasts for Creators. They actually put out some resources for us. Oh my gosh. And you can get not only marketing materials, but also you can generate a short link for your podcast. Because if you look at your podcast in Apple Podcasts, it's like podcast.apple.com/ the name of your show /89822BQZ. Just similar to the way YouTube channel URLs are until you get a custom URL. But they have a tool that you can go and grab and get a short link. And I will leave the links to these tools in the description of this video. Or you also can generate a QR code. Yeah, QR codes are still around, y'all. They are actually, a lot of people still use QR codes, believe it or not. And so Apple has a way for you to grab a QR code. They also provided a way for us to provide a embed player on our blog. Oh my gosh, this was unheard. Maybe 2-3 years ago, that was totally unheard of. Like that you would actually be able to embed the Apple podcast version of your podcast on your blog. No way. But they did. They caved. They started listening, and they started, I guess, realizing that, hey, this is starting to open up. There's other places that people can list their podcasts, like Spotify. So, for example, let me just show you some of the goodies that I grabbed. And this was for the Anchor show. You can grab a QR code, just a plain QR code, and you can get them in different colors. I just grabbed the purple one since My theme is purple, but you can get a black one, I believe a white one. Then you also can grab a QR code that actually has the little Apple logo there. Then you can get this embed. You can get the embed code for this, which is fully responsive. You can get it in the light mode or you can get it in the dark mode. I love that there's a play button right there for the latest episode. Also, if you have a podcast trailer, that podcast trailer is here, like down here at the bottom, right next to the latest episode play button is the trailer. And then your last 5 episodes. And so this is a really cool thing to go ahead and embed on your blog. Okay? Or you could put it on the sidebar of your blog. It's fully responsive, mobile responsive and all that good stuff. So you don't have to worry about any of that. Okay, so they started getting wise. They started understanding that, podcasters need love. Hey, dear Myrtle. Podcasters need love. Podcasters need tools, and they need for Apple to be the resource. Instead of us all scrambling around all these different places to learn how to grow and market our podcast, it only makes sense for Apple to provide some marketing materials for us. And let's see if I can get to that link there. I'll just put that up just to show you the Apple Podcast for Creators. Oh, this is where we pop. Okay. We're going to segue over now into talking about Apple Podcast subscriptions because I clicked the wrong button, so that's okay. This is the beauty of live. We're going to go with the flow. Apple Podcast subscriptions. Tim Cook announced it on the spring-loaded keynote address the other day, and I think a lot of folks were taken by surprise. I know I certainly was. And I'll just read something that I cut and paste somewhere from on this page. In Apple Podcast Connect, you can create a single destination called a channel to list multiple podcasts in one place. You can group your shows together however you like. Create a single channel to highlight your brand or create multiple channels to group shows with similar themes. When creating multiple channels, keep in mind that shows can only be linked to one channel. So that's just one of the other changes that they made. I sort of skipped around there before I really got into what's going on with the monetization and the subscriptions. But, that's another benefit that you have is that you're going to be able to create these channels. Now, this could help with the monetization. It remains to be seen. It's not exactly clear. But let's just say your show is, you have some subscribers, or you have some listeners, but you're also really tight, or you have a close collaboration with others that are podcasting about the same topic. You guys may decide to get together and create these channels, which may be more attractive to subscribers. Now, like I said, I don't know how the money and all that stuff will work out. That remains to be seen, but I just want to plant that seed in your head. And so let's see what it says about starting this May, you can offer premium subscription to listeners, giving you new ways to grow your podcast business. And so now I'll tell you the pros and the cons. All right. I'm going to tell you the cons, and then maybe we'll go to the pros. So, for example, when someone's listening to your podcast on the Apple Podcast app, it's going to be super easy, almost seamless for them to decide that they want to subscribe. Okay, subscribe now means pay. All right, it used to be subscribe was just to subscribe to listen, but now that's called follow. What used to be subscribe is now called follow. I'll say that again. In the app, you're going to follow shows. The only time you're going to subscribe is when you're going to pay. Now, this is totally different from YouTube. So I know, like right now, I'm talking to my YouTube friends. And so this, try to make that connection there that, think about it as being a channel member here on YouTube. All right. So YouTube didn't want to change that subscribe to follow. They stuck to their guns, but Apple has done a complete reversal of the terminology that they've been using for years. It's been subscribe, but now it's going to be follow, and subscribe means money, paying money. Okay. So when that's going to happen, it's supposed to happen in May. You can apply, but right now, odd as it may seem, right now their website is not fully functioning properly. So lots of people can't log in. I know I can't log into my podcast right now. But we know they're in transition, making all of these changes. And so that's probably the reason why, some folks can't log in, and slowly migrating servers and all that good stuff. So don't worry. I think that by the end of the month, it'll all the decks will be cleared, and we'll have smooth sailing and be able to log back in again and submit our applications. Okay. So now here's the big con. Actually, there's two big cons, because remember I told you that Spotify is going to give you 100% of that subscription money. Well, Apple is going to take 30%. Very much like what happens here on YouTube, which is why you guys hear me saying and mentioning to you to buy me a coffee. Because as much as I love YouTube, buy me a coffee. Not only do I not have to wait, I also get to keep more of the money. Buy me a coffee does take a small cut, but YouTube and Apple are kind of like on the same page with taking like a 30% cut. This is like for the privilege of you using their platforms. And don't get me wrong, like I said, I love YouTube. I love the fact that we have free video hosting here. But, some folks who want to, support my work or just want to be nice, buy me a coffee. So you just go to ILEANE.link/coffee. Okay. And then I also want you to get your own coffee too. So, ILEANE.link/get your own coffee. Because I want you to set up your own buy me a coffee page. All right. So back on track here with Apple. So in addition to the fact that they're going to take 30%, now the 30% is for the first year, and for the second year is 15%. Now, I got to clarify that. It's not the first year you're in the program. It's per subscriber. So, for example, if I subscribe to someone's show, that person is going to get 70%. Apple's going to get 30%. Okay, for the first year. Then for the second year of my subscription, the person is going to get 85, and Apple's going to get 15. So it's not how long you've been in this program, it's how long that person has subscribed to you. So 30% the first year goes to Apple. Then after that, it's 15%. And if I'm not mistaken, this is very similar to any of the apps in the App Store. So, in addition, in order for you to even get into the program, one of the things that you have to do is pay $20. Well, it's $19.99. So you have to pay. It's almost like paying for a developer license. Okay. Now, here's one last con. The big con of this. You're not going to know anything about the people that subscribe to your podcast. You might know the number of people. You'll know that. But you will not know who they are, where they live, their email address. Forget that. Forget that. Now, they can contact you, outside of Apple and say, yeah, I just subscribed. And, you might be able to believe them. But Apple is not going to provide you any of that information. Apple's super big on privacy. And, I think that there's other workarounds that we as podcasters could do if we were to take advantage of this program. Different things that you could tell people, just your calls to action throughout the show to get on your email list or what have you. But it's over and above what they would have to do. And there's no guarantee that they're going to do it just because they like you enough to give you $5, $8, whatever it is that you ask. That doesn't mean that they're going to okay, I want to get on their email list. No, not necessarily true. Okay, so the biggest con is just the fact that Apple is embracing the biggest pro, that Apple is actually acknowledging and embracing podcasters as, the value that we offer. There's another con. And oh my gosh, I feel like I have to sneeze, so hang on. The other con is that people will only be able to subscribe through Apple Podcasts. So if they don't have an iPhone or an iPad or a Mac, let's just say they're on Android, they're not going to be able to do it. Now, like I said, if you're on a PC, there still is the iTunes store on your computer. I don't know if you're going to be able to subscribe that way. For now, I'm going to assume not. I'm assuming this is a mobile thing. And also, there also is a possibility, I don't know how long it would take or when it's going to happen, but there is a possibility that Apple could introduce an Apple Podcast app over in the Google Play Store. Because there is a Google Podcast app in the Apple Play Store. So it's not above the realm of our imaginations. That could happen, and I guess we have to see how it goes. But as it stands now, if you're Android users, or if you know that your audience, let's just say you have a podcast about Android, you're probably not even listening to this right now because you're like, I don't care about, the Spotify thing though. It may be appealing because Spotify, of course, as you know, is platform agnostic. It's on all the platforms. Even those few people that have Windows phones can get a Spotify app. Okay? So, very, very interesting times, very exciting times. In my view, I think it's very exciting what's going on with the podcasting space, and as content producers that were able to monetize in multiple ways. Everything from, buy me a coffee. Kofi, even Lipson has acquired a site called glow.fm, which is very similar to Buy Me a Coffee. And so there's just, there's Patreon. you can set up your own membership site on your website. And if you've got WordPress, you can use plugins. And there's all these other things out there now. Mighty Deals or Mighty Networks or something. I don't use it, so it's not Mighty Deals. It might be Mighty Networks though. I've never even seen the interface, so but I am a huge fan of Buy Me a Coffee. I'm a huge fan of Buy Me a Coffee right now. I really am, because Buy Me a Coffee is also going. They have also introduced the tiers that are similar to Patreon, where you could have like a $5 a month, a $20 a month, or whatever your tiers would be. You also can do blog posts over there, and they're going to introduce podcasting into, having podcast feeds over there as well. I'm sure they're working on a deal with someone, and I hope that all goes well and they don't get acquired. Fingers crossed. But yeah, we have so many options and so many choices. I've been telling you guys this, a couple of videos ago. I talked all about the Clubhouse monetization. I was so thrilled that I was granted monetization over there on Clubhouse. And then also Twitter is about to release something called Super Followers, where you're going to be able to get paid on Twitter as well. And of course, Facebook already has some monetization. If you're not familiar with that, let me know. Let me know if you'd ever want to see a video about some of the monetization options over on Facebook. And so let's see, what else do I have in my notes? No, I really wanted to make sure that I brought this information to you today because, this is really new, and I don't want you guys to be confused about, jumping on the bandwagon with Apple Podcasts, or even jumping on the bandwagon with the Anchor and Spotify. You need to be informed. You need to know what your options are. So I hope I've provided them, laid them out for you. Another place you can get monetized is Haps. And I actually thought about doing this broadcast on Haps today, but I said, you know what? Nope. I'm going to save this just for my YouTube peeps, because they, usually do see me on here when I go live. The last few times I've also been going through Haps, but Haps is another great place to get monetized as well. And of course, YouTube with the super chats and your memberships. And some people are lucky enough to even have the applause feature. Your channel, of course, has to be monetized for any of these things. But the applause feature allows for people to hit that applause button even when you're not live. And they can give you a couple bucks, just to support you. And, it's great because it's one of the things that I like to do. I mentioned Haps, and that's one of the things that I do just about on a daily basis is I will go over to Haps and I'll find people who are live streaming and go and just give them tips, because you can give tips as low as 15 cents, but you can give up to $50 as a tip over there as well, or you can support people's work. But I just like, because people like that. They like that encouragement. They want to feel good. They want to feel valued. And also, it's all about the giving economy. Like, you can't expect to get if you're not even willing to give. So you have to have that open palm in order to receive. And my mom taught me that. Rest in peace, Barbara. Thank you for sharing that thought with me one day. And so, give to those people who are providing value for you, that you're learning from, and that are entertaining you. It doesn't have to be like a tutorial. Like, make it just be somebody that makes you laugh, or they're an entertainer. They play music or some other type of performance. Maybe it's even a a dramatic play or some kind of thing that's being acted out. Yeah, support folks. And so, oh, okay. So I want to give you guys some resources. Oh, I'm so glad I looked up. I'm so glad I wrote these things down. One more thing about Apple. One more thing that they changed with the Apple Podcast app. And this is a small thing, but I want to tell you about it anyway. So, in addition to the fact that they made the player just more lovely to look at, they also built in what they're calling the smart player, and they're making it easier for people who find your show for the first time on the app. They've introduced a smart player, which will, if you have a podcast that is seasonal, right? So let's just say you've got a podcast where you're doing storytelling, and you've got a beginning of your story is episode 1, and then let's say it goes for 10, 12 episodes, and but yeah, you need to listen to them in order. And in the past, people could just tune in to like episode 5 and be like, well, who are these characters, or well, what's this going on? I don't like this show. But now the smart player is going to automatically go to episode 1. So I want to say to you guys, if your podcast is not a seasonal podcast like what I just described, where it's telling a story, or you have to listen to one episode, in order. If your podcast is not seasonal, then please do not use the seasons tag when you upload your episode to your podcast host. In other words, some people make the mistake of using seasons just because, hey, on the summer, I don't put out a show, so I'm just going to say that was season 1, and then in September we'll pick back up and that'll be season 2. But there's no reason for somebody to listen to it in order. In fact, they probably need to listen to your latest episode rather than going all the way back to episode 1 of season 2, right? So don't do that. Don't use the seasons unless you really have a seasonal podcast where it's a completely different storyline, or where people can't pick up from episode 7 and know what's gone on before. Okay? Because especially now, because Apple has introduced a smart player, which is going to, when they know you have seasons, it's going to go to episode 1. It's going to send that listener who just found your podcast, it's going to send them to episode 1. So you don't want them to do that if you know that it makes much more sense for them to be on episode 18, which is the one you just put out last week. Okay? So if any of that went over your head and you're using seasons and you're still confused about that, please, please, please get in touch with me so I can, go through, look at your show, and, all my descriptions, all of the places to contact me are clearly in the description of this video. And you can send me an email, you can leave me a voicemail on my SpeakPipe, all kinds of stuff. DM me on Facebook. A whole bunch of ways to get in touch with me. So don't ever let that stop you. So go to the description of this video, or wherever you're listening to this content. Just if it's the show notes of the podcast, that would be really, really cool. Okay, so so this smart player is going to also make it easier for you to know which episodes you've already listened to. It's easier for you to play back offline. So if you're not connected to internet, let's say you're on a plane or something, and you want to catch up on some podcasts, it's going to make it much easier for you to do that. And you can bookmark them to listen to later from what's called the library. So the smart player sounds like it's kind of smart. Okay, so now I want to talk about some of the resources so that you guys can keep up with the podcasting space like I do. And the first one I want to mention is the one for ladies, and it's called She Podcast. ShePodcast.com is a Facebook group as well as a podcast hosted by Elsie Escobar, who's an award-winning from the Podcasters Hall of Fame, and also Jessica Kufferman is the co-host on that, and John Domingo is their editor. He makes appearances sometimes on the show as well, and they have a fantastic podcast. The next one I want to talk about, another podcast about podcasting, is called Pod News. Pod News is hosted by James Cridland, and it's also available as a smart brief, on Lexi or Amazon Echo. I'm looking over at mine. Oh, fun fact. If you have an Echo show, just
Queens, Forever, the Naked Brothers Band, Maria Magdalena, Mary Happywood Ever, and others.
Echo stop. I changed the name of mine to ECHO because I don't want people saying that ALEXA and she going off, but I said the word ECHO. So anywho, if you have one, this is going to be so fun. If you have the show, that's the one with the screen, okay? Tell it to take your photo. So here I'm going to say Echo. Echo, take my photo.
Okay, get ready. Saving to Amazon Photos.
And she saves it to
if you'd
Amazon.
Like to send this photo to someone, just ask me to share it.
She saved it to Amazon Photo. And I will show you some that I took earlier. So anyway, going down my list of resources, and if you're somebody who has Alexi, I'll give you this quick resource, and that is to follow Voice in Canada by Terry Fisher. That's how I found that little tip out. All right, let me give you, as I'm bringing this up, let me give you some more resources. Chartable, smart links. If you ever wonder about all the different oh my goodness, I took a bunch of pictures today. Check this out, y'all. Look, these are all the pictures. You can swipe left and bring up stickers. Now, this is the one I just took. This is me sitting at the desk. But these were ones, you see I have a different shirt on. These were ones I was taking earlier today when I first heard about it. And that leaf there, it just so happens to be a leaf from the plant that happens to be sitting right in front of the right in front of the Echo. So there you go. That is so cool. I'm so glad that I found out that I could do that. So you can add stickers to they're not like Instagram stickers or anything like that, but still fun and a cute thing to do. And you can think about doing that when you are working and showing. You can show behind the scenes that way, and you also can send those photos to people. So yeah, Chartable smart links. So we're going to get back into some of the resources I'm going to go over with you. Chartable smart links is a way that you can make a link that will open up your podcast in whatever device the person's on, it'll just open it up. Let's just say the person's on an Android phone, it's only going to open up those apps that they can listen to the podcast on their Android phone. So it would open up Google Podcasts and I guess Pocket Cast, maybe Spotify. So go over to chartable.com, and it's a directory for podcasting as well. And they've got all kinds of stats and things over there. But you can dive into some of those other tools that are available on Chartable, but I just wanted to tell you about the Smart Link because somebody specifically asked me about, a place where, all of your links could be in one place. So Podchaser. Podchaser is the next resource I want to tell you about. They consider themselves as the IMDb, or the Internet Movie Database of podcasting. And let's go over to Podchaser real quick and just take a look at what some of the pages look like over there. You also can leave ratings and reviews for some of your favorite podcasts over there. And you can follow podcasts as well. You can even get to see when some of your favorite podcasters are being interviewed on other shows. So here you can pick your top 8. You see my top 8 podcasts here over on the side there. And I can share that if I just wanted to give a shout out to all these people here. 2 of these podcasts are from my daughter. One I just told you about, which was Pod News of Podcast Engineering. That's another resource for you. School of Podcasting, Dave Jackson, The New Media Show with Todd Cochran and Rob Greenlee, and then Creator Upload, which is one of my new favorites. It's actually my new favorite podcast right now, behind my daughter and the Women in Money. And that's Josh Cohen and Lauren Schnipper. That's a great podcast to check out. So you want to go over to Podchaser if you want to see what my I'll go to my profile so you can see how you can set up your own profile page. And of course, mine is podchaser.com/users/Eileen. And I will put that up on screen here. I think I will try to show you that link. And, there's a lot you can do with your Podchaser. Jeez. I'm not sure why it didn't spread out, but there you go. So I will also, it's in the chat on YouTube, and I will also leave it in the description. Okay, so I'm going to just give you one more resource. And, before I do that, I just want to thank everybody for coming to the live stream. But before I go, here's that last resource, and that is International Podcast Day, internationalpodcastday.com. And it happens every year on September 30th. Every year on September 30th. But however, you don't have to wait until September 30th to go over there and get some information and learn about podcasting, learn about the history of podcasting, and probably you can see some of the past broadcasts because this is an event that they've been putting on every year for the last, I want to say 7 or 8 years. I think it was 2014. And, you can find out the benefits of podcasting, and you can see, the schedule. Of course, it's not out yet because it's 152 days away. But I brought this out because someone was talking about, how Apple invented the word podcast and all that. And I'm like, no. And so I went to this historical timeline. This is always good to go back to when someone thinks they know what they're talking about when it comes to podcasting, and they're wrong. And not because you want to be, Miss Know-It-All, but you just want to know your stuff. If you're going to be a podcaster, basic things like Adam Curry and Dave Weiner were the inventors of podcasting. You need to know that, okay? Because when you see Adam Curry, who is currently leading something called the Podcast Index, which we're not going to cover today, but just know, go over to podcastindex.com, or maybe it's .org, and find out what's going on with that. You know what? I'm going to go over there now. It's .org. It's podcastindex.org. And, so Adam is still involved with furthering the podcast industry. So go over here and find out how many podcasts they have in the index, and what they're all about, their mission. And like I said, it's .org, podcastindex.org. So I gave you a bonus resource that I didn't even know I was going to share with you. But I think this is a worthy one for you to go over here and check out, podcastindex.org. And with that, my friends, I want to say to you, happy podcasting, and I hope that you're able to get tons and tons of subscribers, and I mean paid subscribers, no matter whether you use Spotify to put out your exclusive content, or if you're using Apple Podcasts to put out your exclusive content, or if you use Buy Me a Coffee. You there are so many options and so many choices. I hope I've laid out the basics in order for you to make the decisions of which ones you're going to use, or maybe you're going to use both. That's okay too. So, with that, guys, thank you so much for coming. Be sure to check the description for all the links. And as always, I say, stay beautiful.